and it's always ladies first on this show, so I will let you take it away. We're the good guys, aren't we?
Yes. And the appalling thing is that the Afghan war was, of course, a NATO war. I know a lot of people think it was just Britain and America, but it wasn't. It was a NATO war. So all NATO was involved in that war, and therefore all those countries involved should, and apparently were once going to, take their share of the fallout in terms of the refugees. But whereas, and I don't think we did terribly well over the Afghan interpreters, and I've said that on this programme many, many times, and I think we did betray the interpreters, but we have taken many more refugees than other countries in Europe, something like 13,000 Afghans. So I don't think we're doing that badly when it comes to looking for our international obligations. I think we're doing quite well. Minus the interpreters, which I think was appalling.
Dennis, if you tip up in Greece as a genuine Afghan asylum seeker, you get lobbed in a squalid detention centre on an island somewhere and given no access to public services or any provisions. In this country, you can rock up illegally on a boat, we'll put you in a 4-star hotel, we'll let you send your kid to school, and we might even build you a new house. We're the good guys.
I think I've always said Britain is generous, been generous to Hong Kong people, been generous to Ukrainian people. Greece's problem is simply it's got about 2,000 islands, of which 250 are inhabited, big ones like Crete, smaller, lovely ones like Santorini. And you can simply arrive on one of those, almost in a rowboat, fall off onto the beach, and then it's the Greeks' responsibility to look after you. And they say, we'd like to share this out because they're all coming mainly from Libya.
Germany's not accepted a single Afghan refugee from their quota of 1,000. Germany's a big country.
Germany has settled 262,000 Afghanistans, accepted them. What Germany, I imagine, I'm not speaking for Germany, people talk about the EU. The EU can sit up and say everybody should take their share, and everybody says, what? What? We're British. We're not taking your refugees. And the Germans say we've taken 260,000. Maybe that's enough. Try another country.
And when people pipe up and say our Rwanda scheme is horrible and it's racist and it goes against people's human rights, I mean, should we just point them in the direction of the way that the European Union is treating these people?
Well, actually, it's not a bad idea because the European Union is mistreating people who are genuine refugees. The people pitching up on our shores in the small boats are largely economic migrants who have absolutely no claim to be here at all. So there's an enormous moral difference. And I'm not going to say we're purer than pure because, as I say, I've got the problem with the Afghan interpreters. But that aside, I think we have been an example to the rest of Europe on this one. Rwanda is for economic migrants abusing our system. It's not for people who helped us in a war.
Dennis, the European Union has absolutely lost the moral argument. They are the opposite of what they claim to be. The reason why everyone wants to come here is because, as we can see now, we are a shining beacon of hope in an otherwise bleak and dark European existence. We treat them better.
Germany took 1 million Syrian refugees.
How did that work out?
Well, it was unpopular in Germany. But why were they there? Because David Cameron decided a policy of regime change in Syria and helped destroy the state, with help from Putin and others for sure. And so every Syrian who could, if you'd been a Syrian, Patrick, if I'd been Syrian with children, whatever, we'd have got out of there like a shot. Germany took 1 million, we took hardly any. But you see, you talk about the EU, fair point. But actually, every national government in Europe has got its own rules and its own policy. The Swedes are far more generous than the Germans. The Italians are in the firing line now. The French, they had to ban a visit by the French foreign minister because the French Home Secretary said that the Italians' immigration policy was a disgrace. So if you follow European politics, as I do, the little squabbles we have here are nothing to the big punch-ups in Europe.
Anne's getting very animated. Go on.
Well, I just laughed when I heard the mention of the French, because we all know what the French have done about the small boats, and we all know how they just take money and then do absolutely nothing for it. So I certainly, wouldn't look at the French as any sort of example at all as to how to treat refugees. And why do they try to escape from France to come over here? These economic migrants is because they know darn well that France will say no. But whereas if they come here, and they can arrange to disappear into the underground economy, they'll never be removed. They won't get that in France.
Dennis, the EU likes the phrase full regulatory alignment, and if we decided to do that, we wouldn't be allowing anyone coming in over a boat, we wouldn't be putting them up in four-star hotels, we wouldn't be building them new homes, we wouldn't be giving them access to our public services, would we?
Sure. I mean, the French take 4 times more refugees than we do.
They're massive a country, aren't they?
Well,
how big is France?
It's about twice our size, the same population. But you're absolutely right that this myth of the EU dictating to countries what to do, this has been blown apart by, I think, your own excellent reporting. It is completely different, the approach, say, in Greece. There have been some very ugly reports in the American press of the Greeks sort of pushing refugees back onto
There is a point there, and it is actually a very, very good one, which I think is something that people should be doing. Clearly, the main reason why I'm doing this report is to try to highlight the fact that we are actually treating people a lot better than the European Union. There's a moral argument there. I want to expose their hypocrisy. But it also does, I think, expose the absolute hypocrisy of our government leaders here who are saying, well, there's nothing that we can do about this. Well, hang on a minute. If those countries who are in the European Union are able to do, well, frankly, less for people than we are, why can't we?
Oh, well, we made that point endlessly while we were in the EU. Endlessly, we made that point. And there was no satisfactory answer to it at all. But, of course, the EU always falls apart and always squabbles amongst itself when there's an enormous pressure that is threatening it, as happened during COVID and the vaccinations. And they were all closing their borders, these free movement people, and arguing with each other and about who had the rights to it and trying to close the Irish border so that we couldn't get the vaccinations that we'd ordered and paid for. I mean, they always squabble amongst themselves. And this is a very good example of it, with them just going their own way when it suits them.
Well, it is, but I dare say quite a lot of people would actually rather that we were behaving like countries like Greece, because there is an active deterrent there, isn't there? And I hate to say it, but the deterrent there is if you go to Greece... I'm not saying we should reduce ourselves, by the way, to the lowest common denominator, but the deterrent about being an Afghan migrant in Greece, that you don't want to stay there, is because you get treated appallingly, isn't it? But there we go. Look, both of you...
No, Patrick, there is a big, big difference between an economic migrant and a genuine refugee. And people coming out of Afghanistan are largely the genuine refugees, many of whom actually actively helped us and America and other NATO countries during that war. They are different, and they should be treated
making
different.
that point.
Yeah, well, it's a moot point. The point really is, isn't it, though, that yes, they are, but they're still being treated terribly. Both of you, thank you very much.